Average Joe's Drive-In is proudly sponsored by the Maine Cannababes. The Cannababes are a charity group of pro-cannabis women from the state of Maine who are bringing worthy attention to various causes in the medical cannabis community. This year, they launched their very first Maine Cannababes Pinup Calendar, which they are taking pre-orders for as we speak. All the proceeds from the calendar are going to worthy charitable causes. If you are interested in purchasing one or finding out more about the Cannababes, you can go to their website, www.maincannababes.com, or find them on most major forms of social media like Facebook and Instagram. If you order a calendar and enter the code word Average Joe's Drive-In, you could win a chance to get an autographed picture of your favorite Maine Cannababe. Once again, put in the code word Average Joe's Drive-In for a chance to win an autographed picture of your favorite Maine Cannababe.
Welcome to Average Joe's Drive-In, your weekly podcast on movies, music, games, and other things entertainment related. Now, your host, TJ Washburn.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Average Joe's Drive-In. I am your host, TJ Washburn, and with me this week is my guest and my friend, Erik Marner. Erik, how you doing, man?
I am doing great, Mr. Washburn. How are you doing, sir?
Not too bad, besides my Patriots lost today, but, you know.
Yeah, but it was a close one, at least. I mean, over here in Browns fan land, it's just a sad state of affairs. The 100 Years' War continues.
Yeah, the Patriots defense is terrible this year. They're ranked like last, and they're just awful. They beat themselves today.
Yeah, you'll just have to cry through all those rings.
Yeah. I'm just, it's just, I'm so used to avoiding now. It's kind of like, I don't know, I don't really have anything to bitch about, but anyway, but still, it's almost hockey season anyway for me, so I'm pretty much like,
I think Blue Jackets kick off Friday for us over here.
Bruins are Thursday, so I'm gonna be watching the Bruins on Thursday night, and
nice.
I might watch the Patriots game too, because that's also Thursday night because they're playing Tampa. So I don't know.
They got slaughtered today too.
Yeah,
I think. Oh no, wait, that was Miami. Never mind. Getting my Florida teams mixed up.
I might just watch the Bruins and DVR the Patriots. So. but yeah, so besides that, no, not too bad, enjoying nice fall Maine weather, and it's gone from 90 to 30 something degrees, and yeah.
We've had it unseasonably hot here in Ohio as well, and I'm glad that this week it's kind of finally started to taper off and we're down to like 60. Like, oh, thank God.
Oh, yeah.
I need... The older I get, the less I can handle the heat. I'm going to just move up to Maine with you eventually.
Enjoy the 7 months of winter and then just the 5 months of, like, brutal humidity. Yeah. The weather's been, like, nice during the day, but that overnight, first thing in the morning's been, like I said, in the 30s. It's been kind of cold, so. But... So yeah, for those of you who, for my listeners who don't know who Erik is one of the hosts of the Movie Freaks, another podcast that's pretty awesome that I listen to pretty much as soon as every episode comes out.
Thank you.
So, one of my favorites, right up there with like Faculty of Horror and Joe Rogan and the Potato League podcast. Those are like my my four that I listen to. On a regular basis, so.
Well, cool. I appreciate it, and thanks for having me on your show.
Oh, no problem, man. I've been like, I know schedules are hectic. I definitely want
chaos, absolute chaos.
I know, especially with you, with the kids and the job and the podcast and everything else.
Yep, it's been nuts. I finally got the kid down for a nap after a kid's birthday party, a pool party actually. So they've good and wore out, I think, for the time being, so I don't have to be screamed at for long enough to talk about some movies and stuff.
It's a break in the screaming.
That's right.
Woo! Yeah. So, just tell everybody a little bit about yourself and the movie freaks and all that, so they can kind of get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, I started this podcast about 3 years ago, it was April 2014. I had started listening to podcasts at that time, and I said to my buddy Eugene, "Well, just try this just once with me. Well, so I know it'll be dumb, but let's just see if we're any good at it." And then I was like, "Wait a minute, have been talking about movies together literally since Return of the Jedi came out, and we saw it in theater together, and I was 4 years old or whatever. Every week, even like after into adulthood, we would call each other on the phone and just bullshit for like an hour and a half, sometimes longer, about what movies you saw, or did you hear that the video rental place, did you see they got this movie in, and all that kind of stuff you did before the internet."
Yeah.
I said, "Look, there's no reason that you and I should have any trouble bullshitting about movies for an hour. Let's just do it, and we'll have some drinks and it'll be fun." And here we are, 160 plus episodes later, and once a week we fire up the Skype and see what have you been watching, what's good. I always say at the beginning of the first segment that we're looking for those gems in the rough, and I didn't want to be another podcast that's just shitting on movies, because I think everybody has one of those. There's a ton of them out there, where people will try to out hyperbole each other with what an abortion of cinema everything in the world is.
Right.
And I'm so tired of that kind of troll reviewing. So I wanted to be more positive. We do watch bad movies and we do crap on them, but it's for a purpose. We're trying to bring to light those ones that don't get enough attention. And in the age of Netflix, there's a lot of them that deserve to not get attention.
I absolutely I hear you there. It's like a combative challenge sometimes. I feel like I'm getting ready to go off to battle sometimes when I want to watch something and I don't know what I want to watch. It's like, at least in the days of the video stores, I had cool cover art to look. It was kind of like it was a big event when I used to go to the video store and spend 2 hours trying to find 2 things to watch.
Oh yeah, same here.
But surfing through the Netflix, it's not the same, because you don't really quite get that really eye-catching artwork anymore like you used to, because of the whole facet of the way everything has changed.
Mm-hmm.
In the way we view movies, you don't really get the artwork, like that old school hand-painted artwork, just crazy-looking stuff. Now everything's kind of generic, at least to me it seems like that. It's very kind of...
Well, I noticed something on Netflix today, too, to that point, that they change the artwork sometimes to try and entice people to watch.
I have noticed that, yeah.
What was it? The Bad Batch I finished watching today. And it does not have the cover of what I don't know where I saw it on IMDb or the actual movie website itself. They changed it to one of the stars being on there so that you stop and go, "Oh, what's this with this guy?" They're trying to entice you into watching it. And the other thing with the video store is you were committed. This is your money that you're going to pay.
Oh yeah,
you got to watch it. Whereas with Netflix, it's you can hit play on something, and then I watch. Sometimes I don't get past the opening credits.
No.
Because I can tell that you made that on a home computer or something, and your synopsis wasn't that cool. So I'm out.
Right. And that was the thing. In the video store, I would sometimes pick out 4 or 5 movies, and then I'd get down to that point. It's okay, I've got 2 here that I can watch. What's my choice going to be? Then you would kind of, all right, I'm weeding this out. I'm going to put back Reanimator because, friggin' Cat's Eye's got a cooler cover, or whatever, not that that's probably a good example, because Reanimator's cover's way cooler, but...
or you got burned on the last thing you took a chance on, and you desperately want to watch something good and not waste your money this time. So you're like, do I want to rewatch Reanimator, or do I want to try out this new, movie I've never heard of before?
Oh yeah, that's how I got sucked into watching a lot of things like Deathstalker, because the covers of the...
I love those covers so much.
Those covers were so amazing, and then you watch the movie, and it's like, this is like a bad version of Beastmaster without the animals. I'm confused, and that I do miss that though, because it's like when you really found something awesome, it was like I just struck gold, and now I'm gonna go out and tell all my friends about this awesome movie. Because
I so completely agree, and it's one of the reasons that I've actually started collecting VHS movies again, like VHS tapes.
Same here.
I've always kind of kept some of my old media. Like, there was a huge purge for me and Eugene when the DVDs started coming out, because we're like, oh my god, the clarity, we took bags and bags of VHS tapes to the exchange stores, and when I started collecting VHS here again in the last year, after watching that documentary.
Yeah, same here.
I went down into my basement to, dig out the VHS movies that I kept, because I knew I didn't get rid of all of them. And I was so happy to see that I didn't get rid of anything unusual. I kept all of my stuff that was kind of cool. So it left me with an office box and a half of VHS movies. So everything that I got rid of was really, who needs Independence Day full screen? I don't. I'm good.
Right.
Stuff like that. Jurassic Park full screen, because back then, when you're a dumb kid, it fills the whole screen.
Yeah.
I need the full screen.
Yeah. I did the same thing. Yeah.
The hunt for the VHS now, though, has become so much fun to me, and I scored. I sent you a picture of it earlier. Last week? I scored about 6 or 7. At a thrift store that I was just tickled pink about.
Yeah, and I kind of after watching that, and I had actually found a box of my old VHS movies not too long before that, and most of mine I sold on yard sales, and I actually sold a whole box to somebody. Because they wanted, I sold them for $20 or whatever it was. I got rid of them for next to nothing, but I still had 30 or 40 in a box, and it was really random stuff, and there was no rhyme or reason to why it was still in there. It just was the stuff that didn't sell. And so there's a store close by to me called Bull Moose that I go into, and one of their things is they're the home of the 30-cent VHS tape. So every time I go in, I have to go look, because there's...
Oh, you lucky bastard. Ours are a buck.
I have to go look because, every time you go in, there's new stock in there, or they've rotated stuff in. So I'll go in and spend, $10 or $5 or whatever and get friggin' 15, 20 movies.
Stacks. And do you do laser discs too?
I don't. I never had a Laserdisc player. That was one thing I never got into.
Yeah. See, Eugene was always on the cutting edge of that kind of shit. So I remember him having one when I was in high school and watching Lost Boys at his house. But that was something way out there that I wouldn't even know where to buy one around here. I live in the middle of Amish country.
Yeah.
But he worked at the local video store downtown. And when they finally went out of business here, 15 years ago, I went down there, and the people that took it over, ran it right straight into the ground. And then they were out of business in, a couple of months. But they sold me all of their Laserdisc player that they had for rent and their entire collection of Laserdiscs for a couple $100.
Wow.
And I couldn't let it go because I was like, I have to have this. So I got an Insta Laserdisc collection. It's not a lot. It's maybe 25, I would say.
Yeah.
But there were a couple of things in there that caught my eye. The Die Hard trilogy, the Lethal Weapon trilogy, and most importantly, Star Wars.
Oh, nice.
Now, to my knowledge, this is the only way that you can watch the original trilogy unaltered. There was right when they released them on DVD. There was for a hot minute they had a version on the DVDs that was the unaltered mix.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
I have them on VHS.
Those are full screen.
Oh, you're talking widescreen on.
I have Letterbox.
Oh.
Yes. It's like I know it's nitpicky, but it's one thing that I got.
Right, yeah.
But even the version they had on DVD, I think, was some kind of pan and scan thing.
Right, it wasn't true widescreen.
Yeah. Right. So I snapped that up, and I still have it, and I'm still happy that I have it because they still haven't released it. Also, when I picked that up, I got Schindler's List in that set, and they had not put that out on DVD yet, which was a source of contention among a lot of DVD enthusiasts and those of us on the internet who like to scream into the wind about such things.
Right.
I'm still waiting for my Abyss Blu-ray, you bastards.
They'll get it eventually. I mean, Leviathan is on DVD and Blu-ray, so I mean, eventually they're gonna get Abyss out there.
I want to hear that thing in Atmos because you're underwater the whole time. So those speakers on the ceiling, I mean, just imagine that kind of surround sound that Atmos could give that kind of movie where it's complete 360 sound.
And that's one thing. Like right now, and I'm loving it. And I know your co-host is a big fan of the niche. Like Scream Factory and Arrow and Code Red and all those. But I just watched today, matter of fact, I watched the remastered version of The Fog, John Carpenter's The Fog. And let me tell you what, holy cow, does that look great. And for me, I've always been very on the fence about The Fog. Like, I like the movie, but I've never loved it, and...
Oh, wow, I'm surprised. I love it. I came to that movie late, though. I only watched that movie... I've only seen it twice, I think, 2 or 3 times maybe, but I think it's a 10. I love that movie so much.
For me, but, I mean, if you hang around the horror fields, and a lot of people... It seems to be either you absolutely love it or you don't like it. There doesn't really seem to be a lot of people that fall in between on that film. At least, from what I've noticed. And I've always fallen in between, but I always rated it like a 4 out of 10 or a 5 out of 10. But the rescan of it actually cleaned up a little bit of the film, so you can kind of get the full effects of the effects a little better. And it just made it for me. It brought the experience up. I gave it a 6.5, really leaning towards a 7. So it upped.
Wow, that's a good jump.
So I mean, it jumped it up that much for me. So but getting to the point of like you're talking about, waiting for like Abyss on a Blu-ray. I love that there's all these little companies re-releasing stuff like that and giving it like the full-blown just royalty treatment. It's awesome to see those films getting some love and respect.
I completely agree, and I wish that you hardcore horror fans would quit hogging up all of these cool things. Us old school kung fu fans and sci-fi fans, a sci-fi apologist, I should probably say,
right,
are still waiting for somebody to come along and give us those things all nice and cleaned up.
I'm still waiting for that 4K restoration of Screamers.
Yeah. It's gonna happen. You know it will.
Sooner or later. Oh yeah. And I can't believe that, Shout Factory at least is putting out some other stuff other than just the horror. I mean, I'm a horror nut and I love horror, but I also like a lot of other stuff too. So it's good to see that they're putting out some of this. They're kind of. I think if anybody will do it, Shout Factory probably will. Because they seem to be a little more eclectic in what they're putting out compared to, like, say, Code Red or Vivitar or one of any of those ones.
Right. Shout Factory has more genre spread for sure. For those of you cord cutters like me that have a Roku, Shout Factory has an app on there with a ton of free stuff that's legal free, and awesome awesome.
And they have a lot of like cool older 80s movies, like stuff that I've been wanting to see, but I didn't really want to buy it. So
yeah, right.
Like I really, sometime this month I want to watch Neon Maniacs, because that's one that I've always wanted to check out, but I have never seen it because I've heard it's like pretty awful, but at the same time I'm very intrigued.
Good chance I might be jumping on that as well. I'm going to be spending a lot of time with the Shout Factory app this month because it's the Horror-thon month, you know, that everybody does.
31 days of horror, you know.
Yeah, except like, well, as Eugene always says, it's 365 days of horror for him, but
yeah, pretty much the same here, but I don't really have a specific time. But this year, going into like I just started really paying attention to doing all this a few years ago, and where I was like keeping track of what I was watching, and so this year I kind of wanted to have a little bit of a theme going into my 31 days of horror. So I took back in like May and June, I started planning ahead for this. So when I would hit the video store, you know, or I would hit Bull Moose, or I would see a really good deal on Amazon or something, I would take my $10 to $20 that I set aside for my entertainment budget, as I like to call it, and I would pick stuff up so I would have stuff to watch during Horror Month, specifically just for that. And this year I decided to go with franchises, directors, and writers. So those are that's like my theme for the month this year. I decided to kind of do things. That's not all I'm going to watch, but that will be the majority of what I watch.
That's cool. Are you talking like stuff that's like Nightmare on Elm Street, or are you just gonna go through those? Hold on a sec. What's up, buddy? What's up? Come here.
Can you wake up Sissy?
Yeah, go wake up Sissy. She'll get you whatever you need. It's all right.
I want a snack.
Yeah, go tell her. She'll get it for you. Close the door, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I put Sissy in charge of keeping the peace in the house so I could do a podcast, but then she fell asleep on the couch, and the boy didn't want to wake her. These are the common daily dramas that I have to deal with.
Hey.
What was my question? Oh, you're going to go through franchises, you said?
Yeah, so I am planning on doing Nightmare on Elm Street. The first, I'm basically going to do the first 3 to 4 films in most of these. It's going to depend on the number of films in the franchise and how many times I've actually watched some of them. So I'm planning on doing Nightmare on Elm Street 2, 3, and 4 because I just watched one not that long ago. I'm going to do Halloween 1, 2, and 3. I am doing a special podcast on October 13th because it falls on a Friday this year. So my best friend and I are doing a Friday the 13th-a-thon. And
you going to try and watch all of them in one day? That would
No, we've no way that's going to happen. We just can't. I work early, so I won't be able to stay up that late. But what we decided on doing is he's coming down. We're going to basically do I think 2 or 3 podcasts that night. But what we're going to do is the first one, we're just going to talk about the films and all that, and then we're going to watch, I believe, 1, 2, 4, and 6, and possibly Freddy vs. Jason or the remake.
Nice.
And then we're gonna watch 2 or 3, do a podcast. Watch 2 or 3, do a podcast.
Do a commentary on one. Release a commentary track. That'd be sweet.
Yeah, we were talking about doing that, but I've never really done one of those. I'm not even really...
Well, that's the beauty about podcasting, is that it's not live. It's not instant. You can throw it away. You don't ever have to release it if it sucks.
That is true. That is true.
I've thrown away some shit. TJ, trust me.
Oh, I'm sure. But that's just our plan for right now. And but I'm also, like I said, I'm considering a franchise basically anything that has at least 3 movies. So I consider that a franchise. Because, you know, there's a ton of horror that had a sequel, and that was that. But
Are you, like, I get real weird with horror in this respect, that when, even if I watch one that's good, and then a sequel that's not so good, and then I see there's 4 or 5 others, the completionist comes out in me, and I have to watch them all, just so that I can say that I did.
Most of the time, yeah.
I have sat through every Wishmaster, dear Lord.
That's one franchise I've never seen anything in. I've never seen any of the Wishmaster movies. I've watched most of the Howling movies, and that's not much better.
Oh, I've only seen a handful of those. Hold on a sec, bud. Hey, just go poke her until she wakes up. Addison, get up. Unbelievable. Get the kid a frickin' snack already.
Yeah, but
So are you just sticking purely to franchises, or are you going to venture out into singles?
Well, I'm going to do some of those too, but I'm also doing some directors, so like I'm going to revisit a bunch of John Carpenter films I haven't seen in a while. I watched The Fog earlier, like I said.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to hit a few 2 or 3 movies there that I haven't seen in a while. I'm also doing some based on writers, so like Clive Barker, Stephen King type stuff. And
Cool.
I've already watched 3 Stephen King movies, and
Nice.
I've got a couple more that I'm... Like I said, I started my 31 days of horror early because I am going to be gone for a week at the end of the month.
Right.
So I had to start a little earlier. No way in hell I would have ever.
No, that's understandable. You just moved the time frame a bit. My game plan, I mean, I kind of start off the same way that you said. I kind of only buy movies, being a married with 3 kids, poor man. I only kind of buy movies now, generally Black Friday through New Year's, because they have crazy sales.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'll go out on little spending sprees where I spend $20 and come home with a stack of Blu-rays and stuff, and then they go on the shelf, and I'm like, oh, I should watch that Blu-ray, but Netflix. And so then I go over to Netflix, because I'll always have the Blu-ray, and I don't know when this is going to come off of there.
Yeah.
You know, when stuff's going to come and go. So getting my horror-thon started this year is one of the things is going to be clearing off all the horror on my shelf, which I got like a Krampus and The Witch and The Colony. Those have all been on my list or on my shelf for over a year at least.
All 3. All 3 are awesome
Yeah.
movies, by the way, too.
I haven't seen Krampus yet, which I watched, and I borrowed it from Eugene. I loved it, but I've been saving it for Horror Month,
Right.
and that was my favorite movie of that year. The Colony I watched on Netflix, I believe.
Yep.
And then I see the Blu-ray for $2. I'm like, I have to buy that.
That was
movie's
for
awesome.
$2? Hell yeah! That was that movie really surprised the hell out of me because I went into that
Me too.
expecting absolutely nothing.
Yeah. I'm about halfway. Well, let's see. I guess, The Bad Batch I counted as a horror movie because it's got cannibals in it and it's pretty gory. So I figured that has to count.
Oh yeah.
So I've already got one on because my horror-thon started today,
Right.
and which was a bummer for me because Gerald's Game hit Netflix the day or before that.
Right.
And I was like, I want to watch this movie so bad, but I must wait till the first.
Gerald's Game
And
is on my list. That's one of the ones.
I'm halfway through it already, so I am going to pull out a couple other Stephen King things, I think, because I want to rewatch the what's that one called? I almost said the one set in Maine, because they aren't all set in Maine. During the storm, the storm of the century.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched that last year during a blizzard.
I was going to ask you, because you're from Maine, how are the accents in that movie? Are they pretty on point, or are they wildly off base?
They're not bad. They're the best, honestly, like any Stephen King movie, as far as accents go. Fred Gwynn in Pet Sematary is probably the closest. Because Maine has, for those of you who aren't from Maine...
I smell a rant.
Well, no. It's not really a rant, but there's 3 main accents, as I like to call them. There's my main accent, which is pretty much like the normal most people accent.
Okay.
Then you have the coastal accent, which is
the hard, wicked pissa, or piss off.
why you folks are going down here, and I'm gonna tell you what's going on. That's the coastal accent right there.
Yeah.
It's almost kind of that Scottish. It's got a little bit, because the thing is, with Maine, there's a lot of Scottish and Irish immigrants came to Maine, so you kind of get that. Then we have the Franco-American accent, because Maine has a very large Franco-American population. So you get more of the, well, we're going up to TR 3R59, and we're going to go up there in the woods, and that's how we talk, and it's kind of almost like that, and, that's your, sometimes you can't understand what they're saying. It's very similar to, like,
Boomhauer, Maine.
All I can think of is it's very close to like Minnesota, Upper Michigan, maybe kind of. It's very similar to that. So
we start getting into that Canada area, Canadian kind of border mix there.
Maine is surrounded by Canada. I think 90% of the people that don't know their geography think Maine is part of Canada. So
So basically, the further north you go, the colder it gets, and the weirder people talk. That's what we're learning here today.
Yes, pretty much, yeah.
Sorry, derail. Anyway,
that's fine.
Horrorthon. Another thing I thought of with Horrorthon is I came up with kind of a string game. This idea where I'm going to try and see how many I can put together in a string that have 6 degrees connective tissue. So you can go director to director, actor to actor, like
the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon thing, but just
I mean kinda, but it can be, I was opening up to like writer even.
Yeah.
You can go, but no sequels. You can't go Halloween 1 through 15 or whatever, however many there are. That doesn't count. But if you go Halloween 1 with Jamie Lee Curtis and then go Stage Fright, or not Stage Fright, what is Prom Night with Jamie Lee Curtis, then you could, whoever directed Prom Night probably made some other horror movie, and go to that one, and then, just see how many you can string together, just, I don't know, for entertainment value. Because last year, this is what I'm trying to avoid, I got burned out really bad on horror movies, because Eugene gave me, I always tell him every October, okay, just give me a stack, whatever it is that you want me to watch, and you think I'll like, and you want me to review, and last year he gave me a stack of Giallos, which are Black Glove Killer mystery movie. I got so burned out on them.
And for those who also don't know, they're very Italian. That's where a lot of your Italian stuff, like Bava, Fulci, Argento.
and I'm cool with Italian, but the Black Glove slasher knife killer guy, who is it? We don't know until the very end when they tell you. I'm not as much a fan of those. I like, especially my Italian movies, I like them to be supernatural, crazy. What is Fulci does a lot of that kind of stuff. I really like
Gates of Hell, The Beyond, stuff like that.
The Beyond, man. That movie blows my mind every time I watch it.
Oh, for sure. There's actually, right now on Prime, there's a ton of Fulci movies, and I've got most of them actually in my queue. There's like Manhattan Baby, Never Torture a Duckling.
I haven't seen either. I still need to get those checked off my list.
I think it's Black Cat or something Cat.
Something in a cat's brain.
Yeah. But there's like 5 or 6, and I've never seen the majority of those. So I would like to watch those. I don't know if I'm going to get to them or not, though.
Yeah, I watched that Cat's Brain movie last year, and I liked it. It's really weird. Very strange, but it's nice to get a taste of Fulci every now and then.
Oh yeah, I've got to, like, Fulci's I really have to be in the mood for Fulci. Same really with like Argento or Bava or Michael Sovi. You know, those ones I've got to be in the mood for Italian weirdness, because if you've never watched Italian giallos or horror in general, it's like watching a dream. It's very weird. That's the best way I can describe those movies.
It is. It's a what does Eugene call it? It's a nightmare committed to film.
Pretty much. That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, he's great at doing it because what is that one? See, I'm having trouble bringing up all of these Fulci because they're always cemetery this and graveyard
House by
that.
the Cemetery. Yeah.
Yeah, The House by the Cemetery. I watched that one last year. Maybe it was 2 years ago when we put that on at the theater that Eugene works at. And it might have been the first time I watched it. And I loved it. I mean, I really, really loved it. I thought I liked Fulci's other movies a little better, but after watching that one might be my tops. Because he does that nightmare thing so well in that movie, where you're going along on a certain trajectory, and then it just kind of left turns here, and you're like, oh, well, all right, I guess, but whatever. Yeah. That was weird. Then you're going on this new path, and then a character will literally walk into the room, say something completely nonsensical, and walk out of the room. And like our main character, you're, what the hell was that about? And that's what happens, at least to me, in dreams. You know, yeah. Somebody comes up to you and says something weird and walks out of the room, and everybody just kind of goes about their business like it's normal, and you're the only one left perplexed.
And it transitions to because it transitions to something that has nothing to do with anything else. And
right.
And Fulci out of the Italian directors, I think he was the best at that whole nightmare just vibe. As far as it was, Argento was always more. I always felt was more of a colors and it was like a psychedelic trip. It was just because of the way he uses colors. Now, if you want the best of both worlds, that is Michael Silvi, in my opinion, who did Cemetery Man, The Church, Stage Fright. He had a very limited body of work because he worked. And a lot of people would know Silvi because he was one of Argento's proteges, and he was in a lot of Argento films. So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but two of my favorite Italian films are The Church and Cemetery Man, and he directed both of those. So you will know. If you look his picture up on IMDb and you see a picture of him, you're going to know exactly who he is. Curly-haired blonde guy in a ton of Argento movies. So
cool.
And
anything else? Well, for Horathon, I'm probably gonna. Another thing I do is I go through my Netflix queue and I bump all the horror straight to the top and try and check as many of those. Clean out my queue. Basically, all the leftovers from the roulette that Eugene gave a thumbs up to.
Right.
All right, time to check that out.
I did that the other day. I had been adding Sasquatch, Bigfoot type movies to my queue because anybody that knows me well knows I am absolutely horrified of Bigfoot and Sasquatch. That's just ever since I've been a little kid. It's just. I live in the middle of the forest, okay?
Reasonable.
So I've always had this weird, obsession / just fear of that. And so I want part of my theme, not really theme, because a lot of years I do slashers or whatever, or monster movies, but there was a few Bigfoot movies I wanted to watch that I hadn't seen for a while. So I was like, well, I'm going to try to find a few more. Maybe I'll watch 3 or 4. Because most of them were short, and I was like, they won't be too bad. So, Amazon Prime has a ton of them. Unfortunately, not that I dislike, shot on a high-def camera by a bunch of people and, their buddies get together and make a film type stuff, because I do like some of those. But
the extreme subgenre of Bigfoot movies lends itself very much to me and my buddies went camping this weekend and made a movie.
And that is about 90% of what's on there. So I watched The Legend of Boggy Creek, which I've seen a bunch of times, and that movie I'm reviewing it on my review episode, so I won't get too deep into it. And I also watched A Creature from Black Lake, which is one of my favorite Bigfoot movies ever, because that movie is so friggin' creepy. So
cool. Did you watch that one that Bobcat Goldthwait made? It was on Netflix.
Willow Creek? No, I have been trying to find this without purchasing a copy because I don't the only copy I've been able to find is like $10 or $12, and I hate to just blind buy something for that price.
Yeah, I totally understand.
So I'm kind of waiting till I see it because I've heard nothing but good things.
And now I gotta let the dog out. For crying out loud. Just give me 2 seconds.
That's fine.
Hold on. This is why, as parents, me and Eugene have to wait till all the kids are in bed and everybody's settled down till we can, record a show. And then it's still putting them to bed again because they come down 10 times and stuff like that. It's the wee hours of the morning until we're done.
I understand. I don't have any children of my own, but I know exactly what you're talking about. So,
well, I got only one more that's 3. So once we get them to 4, then it gets so much better, so much easier. It's just the toddler stage is just chaos.
They're much more needy at that age.
Yeah. It's literally a daily struggle to keep them from dying. We were at a pool party thing today, and
that is an important part of parenting.
Let me just walk up to the edge. Let me just walk up to the edge and bend over and try and splash the water. It's like he's gonna fall in and drown. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
That's another part of Movie Freaks is we spend a good 10 minutes griping about our children.
And getting back to Movie Freaks real quick, while we're right here, we'll kind of switch gears. Getting back to Movie Freaks, that's one thing like you were talking about. I like the fact that as far as most of the movie review podcasts and stuff that I listen to, they're very just kind of like review orientated, or like Faculty of Horror is a great one, and they basically just break films down. And
they do so good too. Every time I listen to that show, I feel so stupid because they're so.
They are like next level movie nerds as far as how they break it down from like a psychologist standpoint almost.
Yeah. It's brilliant.
So they get into deep stuff when they start breaking stuff down. But what I was going to say is that's one thing I kind of like about Movie Freaks is you guys really have fun with it. That's one thing. That's one reason I like it, is because it's very much reminds me of like when I sit down with my friends and talk about movies, and you're laughing and cracking some jokes and going a little off subject and having a good time with it. And that's why I enjoy your show. And honestly, like I find myself laughing a lot listening to it. So I think you guys are doing a great job with it.
That's one of the things that was one of my goals, is because the podcasts, I analyze the podcasts that I like to listen to the most, and the ones that I like the most are funny. And so I told him when we were designing the show, letting it develop naturally, but at the same time, there's work that goes in behind the scenes. You set stuff up in a manner of speaking, and I told him, I bring the funny. Everybody that's on the show, I said, bring the funny, man. Write down some little not every single movie that I review, but most of them I'll maybe make a little note of some funny, dumb shit to say. And I almost never use them because we get so caught up in the back and forth that I think of something else that's funnier, or, stuff like that. And most of the time, I wish maybe one day we'll have it to where you can see us on Skype, because there are times where I listen back to it and I kind of sound like a prick because I'll be yelling at Eugene about something. I'll be like, come on, hurry up, say something. But if you were looking at his face, he will pause or something, and he's trying to find the next word or whatever, and that's when I will do that kind of stuff. I'm just trying to be funny, but at the same time, one of my main goals is to make him start giggling, because once Eugene starts giggling, he starts losing control, and then I lose control, and then we just deteriorate into tears, and it usually puts out the funniest stuff, in my opinion. So.
I know exactly what you're talking about, because years ago, I had a radio show on an online radio show way back before I had ever even heard about podcasting, on this site called Ampcast. And we used to put our music up there, and you could download music, and then we would have a show, and you could play what you liked off the site. But my buddy Pete used to come down and host the show with me once in a while, and there was a chat room open so you could interact with people while you're doing it because it was live. And one of my favorite moments ever from that was Pete and I got laughing so friggin' hard because of this little audio thing that we played, and we got laughing so hard. We tried to like do our segue into some more music, and we laughed so hard for like a minute that we couldn't even speak. Every time we'd try to speak, we'd start laughing. I'd start laughing, which would make him laugh, and then he'd start, and it went on like this for like 5 minutes. I mean, I actually have the episode recorded somewhere in my files, and this was like 12, 13 years ago, I think. And, oh my God. And it's like I listened to it not too long ago, and I mean, just listening to it made me burst out laughing just because, you know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm on the road all day for my day job. I drive a lot. And so I listen to a lot of radio shows, not just podcasts, but I listen to the local sports and stuff and whatever. And that's some of my favorite bits is when they can't barely control themselves. They're laughing so hard at some dumb crap they said. And it's contagious. Even though the show comes to a screeching halt because you have two idiots just laughing at each other, it makes for a good show. It makes you laugh, you know? So I like that. That's that's the kind of stuff that I like to bring, or I try really hard to bring to the reviews and to the show. And like I said before, thank God it's not a live show because I edit hard. I tell the people that, you know, the couple guests we have had on, go for it. Swing for the fences. Throw anything out there, because if it doesn't work or somebody doesn't laugh or the joke just kind of teeters, I'll just dump it. It's not a big deal. And I'm not going to put out something that isn't going to be, I don't want to say not a quality product, but I'm trying to make it the best that I can possibly be. And sometimes that, you know, we're not professional stand-up comedians or something, so you got to workshop.
Oh, yeah. No, I understand that. Like, since I've started Average Joe's Drive-In, I've really tried to leave everything in as much as possible, just so people realize that it is what it is type thing. Unless it's obvious audio issues or stuff that I'm trying to fix.
Yeah.
But, you know, and that was one of the things when I started Average Joe's Drive-In. I didn't want to be just a review cast, you know, where I was just reviewing movies or just reviewing one particular genre. My favorite, like, type podcast, like I said, you know, is like, I wanted to do something that was like a mix of like the movie type podcast, but also kind of like a Joe Rogan thing where he has all these different people he's friends with and knows and brings in, and from all these different backgrounds, whether it be music or movies, because I know so many people from the years of being in bands and traveling, and I have met all these people, and
well, and that's what makes your show interesting. It's much more diverse.
And I wanted to do something like that simply for that reason. I didn't want it to just be the same thing all the time. I wanted to be able to, while the main focus of the show is movies, there's also that whole other element, so you get something new. Like I had my buddy Danny on the other day. Danny's a professional wrestler, you know. And we didn't hardly talk about movies at all, but it was a fun as hell episode because it was something different, you know.
Yeah. No, that's great. And that's what's great, too, about podcasting is that anybody can do it. And right now it's still pretty much sort of free, and it's like it hasn't gotten taken over by the government or corporations or something. You know, anybody can do it. And again, you get the flooding market a little bit because everybody then does it. But you can still find little holes that need filled.
Oh, for sure.
To put your own thing out there. And you know, we aren't the biggest podcast in the world. And we talked about that. Like, are we going to try and pursue more listeners? And I'm like, oh, you know what I'm really doing this more for is to our own entertainment and, you know, one day my kids, because if you told me that my dad did a podcast and he's got 150 episodes where he talks about whatever when he was, you know, when he was younger and I was a toddler, I would. Where are they? I want to listen to every single episode because that would fascinate me.
And you would get to know. I think it would give you a different insight to that person that you maybe didn't have.
I would get to know. I would get to listen to him bitch about how I was a toddler and I shit my pants and ran around wouldn't leave him alone when he was recording a podcast.
Daddy.
Daddy, need a snack,
Snack, food, snack,
juice.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And and this is something else. I've seen a lot of people do podcasts, but I've noticed a good chunk of them don't get past maybe like 10 or 15 episodes, and then they kind of fizzle out, and they kind of, and that was my goal. Is I wanted to, which is by the way, kudos to you guys for 160 some odd episodes. That's awesome.
Well, we are, dude. We're movie freaks, and we are obsessed with watching movies. We are in love with cinema, and we have to tell each other about it because we've known each other since we were toddlers. So, and we have the same obsession.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And like I said, it does very much come through that you guys have known each other for a long time, because you guys have that insight to each other that only like really close friends have. Because
yeah.
And this is the thing with Average Joe's Drive-In is I know I'm gonna get to the point where I'm gonna start running out of like new guests to have on as far as
well, you just start the circle over
right,
again.
And I've already got people lined up that are coming back on, but I know so eventually it may kind of divert away a little bit from the format that I have now. But I'm trying to keep it interesting and just I'm having fun with it, and I'm mainly doing it for me, and I hope people enjoy it. But this for me, part of it was when I retired from when I stopped doing an average like my regular music thing. It made it very hard for me to keep in touch with a lot of my friends that I made over the years in the music scene, because I was involved for 10 plus years.
I totally understand what you're talking about. Same thing with me. I went through that too. Where now I'm out of the loop of the music scene, and I don't. Thank God for Facebook. It's the only way I can keep up with
exactly. So this was my way, part of my way of being able to actually chat with my friends from the music scene and that I've made over the years because of that. That was kind of my way of doing that. And like I said, this show is still fairly new. This is episode 18. So it's going to evolve and it's going to change over time, like most podcasts do, I think, if you listen to them. But I'm just having fun with it so far, and I've been very happy, like other people seem to enjoy it so far, and
the only advice I can say to that is keep evolving, man. You don't have to stick to any format you don't want. As long as you're talking about stuff that interests you, you're good to go, and the show will be entertaining because of it.
Oh, for sure, and like and that's the beautiful thing about the podcasting. Like you said, anybody can do it. So if you're passionate about something, I don't care if it's rock collecting. If you are generally passionate about it,
there's literally a guy out there right now that is pissed off that there's not a rock collecting
Be
podcast.
the guy that breaks the cycle and starts the Daily Quartz or whatever you want to call it,
That's a great name.
So
copyright.
Copyright. Send residuals to so yeah, and wow, we're already in an hour. See, and this is the other thing that I love about doing this. It doesn't really take that much time to chat with your friends, because time goes by quick.
No, you do it every single day. It's just a matter of pushing record.
We're just recording this for everybody else to hear and putting yourself out there. So I wanted to bring up the fact you did an audiobook of one of my short stories, and you're currently working on some other stuff. What got you interested in doing the audiobook stuff?
Well, like I said, I'm on the road all day, and when you have a job like mine where you're on the road all day, it takes about a year or two until you're sick of all your music, and there's no buying enough music to fulfill or entertain yourself all day. And so you start looking for other stuff. I started getting into more talk radio. Podcasts became more prevalent. In the interim between those two things, I was into audiobooks. I've always been a big reader, until, it's a little hard to read and drive at the same time,
Safely,
so I
yes.
opted to go for somebody reading it to me. And, hey, check out your local library. They have a bevy of audiobooks, and if they don't have what you're looking for, they can order it in. And I always think it's better to be consuming a story than just, I don't know, waiting in the same old stuff that you listen to. Everybody's heard Stairway to Heaven. You've heard it a million times. I've heard it a million times. Try and get yourself a little more enlightened. At least that's what I try and do. And I'm not saying don't ever, dive into music. Music is important as well. But at the same time, I feel like every story, even the fiction stories, can have a moral to them, or can make you grow as a person, or make you question your actions or your thoughts or the way that you live. And so I go for stories. Well, I'm a movie freak. It's the easiest, quickest way to consume a story. Reading a book takes time.
Right.
So, being on the road all day, I would, listen to the audiobooks, and then I went to the podcasting, and I lost my train of thought. What was the start of this conversation?
Like how you got
me,
into
the audiobooks, yes. Well, so I was a big fan of audiobooks, but especially people that could do it well. And I don't know that I can, but I thought I'll give it a shot. I know at least what I hate when people are, and then Lord Byron picked up the same. I'm asleep, like, come on, man, like, put some pep into it. They often try and get, like, actors to fill in voice actor roles, and it's not that the two can't ever cross, but voice acting is different than regular acting. It is acting, but purely with one tool. And so, like, voiceover work and animation, because I'm a big animation guy, or, anime and animated films and whatever, I recognize this voice, I recognize that voice, because they are good. They immediately
And there's
pull me
something
in.
about their voices that stands out that makes them recognizable.
Right. And there are some people that can change their voice, which is really a talent.
Mark Hamill's a great one at that,
Oh, yeah. Yep. Fantastic. What's her name? Lots of people that are in voice acting that are very, very good at that kind of stuff. So I wanted to give it a shot, and I knew that, if nothing else, I'm good at audio editing because of the podcast, and editing is more my strong suit. We made a few short films back in the day, and I wasn't going to go any further with filmmaking than that, by choice. And but I did realize that I'm good at editing. And Eugene edited our movies, but I would sometimes sit in and see what he's doing, and I was like, I think I would be good at this. And with mixing rock albums that I had recorded on and stuff like that. So I gave you put up, would anybody, I forget how that started. Did you put up, would somebody be interested in doing an audiobook recording?
Yeah, I think I was saying I was interested in looking, I was talking about,
investigating somebody to do it, or did you know?
I was curious if anybody knew how to go about doing it or whatever or something. I can't even honestly remember now.
I think you were looking for somebody to point you to somebody else, but I think I jumped in and was like, hey, I'd like to give it a shot. It was a short story, and I had a lot of fun doing it. And I am working on the returners right now. I haven't got much done on it since school has started, because now, this year, we have both kids in school, and I'm running like a chicken with its head cut off. But winter is coming. Most people say that like a threat in Game of Thrones. I say it like, oh, thank God, because my work slows down, and I'm going to have more time at home.
Right.
Because my job is weather dependent. But I would say I'm a little over halfway done with the initial voice recording. I'm halfway through the book, and it's going okay. But and since this is kind of a new artistic endeavor for me as well, because the only thing I've ever done in this realm is that first short story, I'm learning. I don't like doing the voice work. I mean, I can do it, but I critique myself too much. And I make too many mistakes, and I do this, and I do that, and I use the wrong voice, and I sound a little goofy there, or whatever. And I like going back and doing the editing. And so eventually, I want to find the proper... I have a dream, TJ. I have a dream. I want to do an audiobook, and maybe you have one, in your stable that has more of an ensemble, and I want to get different people to do each role individually.
Oh, that would be cool, yeah.
And then edit it together, like friends and family, people we know, like so that we can do it ourselves. I think that would be so cool. And I think that's going to be the next step in our kind of producing these audiobooks. I'm going to finish The Returners by myself, but I think eventually that's what I would like to do. And then, yeah, edit it. And I'm also debating as I'm doing this what kind of music I'm going to get, what kind of sound effects I'm going to put in, how heavy I'm going to go with it. Because there is a group of audiobooks out there called, oh boy, I can't remember what they're called. Their tagline is Movie for Your Mind. They do a lot of DC books and superhero stuff. And they do a lot of westerns and alien. They do science fiction, but they have full production where they have different people doing every voice. They have sound effects for everything. They have music for everything. It really is like that old school kind of Orson Welles War of the Worlds, pull you in with all of that kind of radio drama from the 30s. Yeah. I'm fascinated by that. I love that stuff so much. Where they used to do that shit live. And Radioland Murders. Have you ever seen that movie? Oh, you need to check that one out. But it's a comedy / mystery thing, but it's all about this stage play that has to for the radio. So everybody's slapping shoes on things to make walking sounds, and you have to be here at a certain time to get your. It's like Noises Off. Have you ever watched that?
No.
I'm just adding all kinds of shit to your queue tonight. I like movies that could be a stage play, and they're stage plays that are turned into movies, and that's kind of what both of those things are. But Radioland Murders is set around one of those Orson Welles War of the Worlds broadcasts.
Okay.
In a cheeky sort of way. So anyway, yeah, that's kind of where we're at with the Returners and the audiobook stuff, and I really enjoy the editing part of it, but just I get too analytical of my own performance while I'm doing it.
Oh, I understand that. That's a musician thing, though. I think most musicians are overly self-critical
when it comes to recording and how their performance comes across, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then I have to sit back and listen to it for hours and hours of me talking to me.
But it's funny that you brought up the radio play thing, because that was something I have been thinking about. I was thinking about I wrote a bunch of screenplays several years ago that I never did anything with. And I've kind of been interested in maybe taking one of those and kind of adapting it a little bit specifically for like a radio play type thing. And I was thinking about I should do, like a horror thing where I maybe do one or two of them, and then next year around Halloween release it as on the podcast type thing, as a special once a year, do one of these type things, but do them fun.
Yeah,
I think that would
cool.
be really fun to do. Get my friends to all jump in and kind of do that sort of thing.
Here's another idea too. I was kicking around. Was taking one of your books and setting it up like a podcast, and then releasing a chapter every week or every month.
That would be cool too. Yeah.
Yeah, like you got to wait for the next installment. There was one podcast that I don't think it's up anymore. I don't think it's around. But the guy would take his own written horror stories, short stories, and do them like an audiobook. And then, every month he would release one. And he was getting fan submissions, and he was recording those as well. I think it's gone now. But he had a couple in there that genuinely freaked me out. Were so well written that I was legit freaked out after.
Oh, that would definitely be. I think that would definitely be fun, because I have a bunch of short stories that that we could probably do something like that with and work them out.
Yeah, and something with more production like that wouldn't have to be so specifically timed. Because that's another thing I tell friends that start podcasts. If you're going to do it, say what your time frame is. If you're going to be monthly or weekly or whatever, say what it is and stick to it. Yeah.
I generally try to release mine on Sundays or Mondays. It depends really on when I'm able to record them. But like this month, I've already give fair warning to most people that this month is going to be heavy on the releases because there's going to be more than one episode most weeks.
But if you're doing a Joe Rogan, well, you are doing more of a Joe Rogan style where he does a couple a week, or like Mark Maron also does several a week, then it's not as big a deal. It's just you don't want to leave your audience floundering, like, where's the episode?
Oh, yeah, no, I absolutely understand that. That's like with you guys. I know on Friday or Saturday, I'm going to download your episode. You know.
Yeah, Saturday morning is when I do the editing. It's usually out in the ballpark of noon.
Yeah, usually I'm already through like halfway through this week. So I listened to it the other day because I had to run to Bangor because I thought I was going to win a TV like an idiot, and I didn't get one. I got $5 to cover my gas because I showed up, but I was so convinced that this 50-inch flat screen TV was going to be mine. And it was, it was that total bullshit false advertising thing. So damn you. And so anyway, I was looking for. I finished up the podcast I was listening to. My friend Dan and Tom do a show called the Potato League Podcast, and I finished up their new episode. And
I listened to that too.
And I was like, well, shit, I gotta find something to download. And I was like, well, I'm gonna see what's on for newer episodes because I had some already pre-downloaded, but I wasn't in the mood for any of those. So, sometimes I've got to be in the mood for certain podcasts. Like Joe Rogan, like. For the longest time, all I listened to was Joe Rogan. And then my buddy Tom and Dan started doing theirs, so I started listening to that, kind of flip-flopping back and forth. But now I have 5 or 6 that I'm listening to, so I have to be in a mood for Joe Rogan now where I want to, because it's going to be a 3-hour investment. So it's going to take me 2 to 4 days to listen to the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm on the road all day, so I have like 20 or 30 that I'm subscribed to, and like the ones that do multiple per week, like Rogan and Maron, I only download the ones of somebody that stands out to me that I'm really interested in. If it's somebody I don't know, or Rogan does a lot of fight stuff where I'm like, skip. I'll just skip that one.
I love the stuff he does with his buddies that are comedians and stuff because it's generally, again, friends hanging out, and those are usually hilarious. I usually avoid the political ones just because I'm so sick of everything to do with political anything.
I've got enough torment
in my
life.
Life is shitty enough a lot of times without dealing with that on a constant barrage, And some of his guests, if it's somebody interesting, like he'll have different musicians on or things like that. But I find for me, I can listen to an episode of the Movie Freaks in one day. I can listen to half on my way to work and half on my way home from work. So a lot of that stuff I find I'll listen to my 2 or 3 of those, like yours and mine type episodes where I can listen to one a day because most of them are only released once a week. Or like the Faculty of Horror is only once a month. So.
Right. But I'm kind of amazed they can even make that schedule with the amount of work that they must put into every one of those episodes.
Because
those ladies are incredible.
They definitely are. And just like I said, like we were talking, it's so analytical and almost on a psychological level of how they break everything down. It's very therapist type way somebody breaks stuff down. And
it is. There have been times where I've been listening to that show and they bring a perspective where I'm like, holy shit, I never looked at that movie with that angle before. And my world is turned upside down because I have. Obviously they're women. I'm a man, so they're going to have a different perspective. I get that, but the way that they will break it down it's just crazy. It's awesome. It really makes me question the way that I view things, and in the best possible way.
Oh, for sure, and that's something else that maybe I'm just not aware of it, but female horror fans don't. I haven't really listened to or heard a lot of podcasts where it's, it's like a strictly female host. Usually there's a couple guys and a girl, or a couple girls, couple guys, whatever. There's another podcast I really like called Horror Haven, and that's how it is. There's a couple guys and a couple girls, and they, it's very cool. But I've noticed there's a big difference a lot of times between male and female perspective when it comes to horror movies. Very much so, because we see them from different vantage points, I think,
Oh, well, of course. And naturally, a lot of horror is pointed towards males. I mean, what is the term that... Well, I'm not a super horror freak fan, so I love all movies, but that genre in particular really attracts Eugene and you. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm constantly telling people, I don't give a shit. Watch whatever you want. But there is that term that I've only recently become acquainted with, even though I've been watching horror movies for a while, is the last girl.
The final girl.
The last girl. The final girl. Yes. Last girl. Final girl. And I found, I was like, what are you talking about? What does that mean? And then, somebody said, well, duh. At the end of Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, every single frickin' horror movie ever, there's one final girl.
Everybody else is dead, but not you.
Everybody else is dead, and it's more perilous to have a female in peril or a child, But you want a next level horror movie idea? Let's start making the final boy a term.
The final dude.
Yeah, and make it a girl that's the killer.
Yeah, if you don't see and that's the thing in horror, when stuff that's kind of outside of the spectrum of the norm, a lot of times with horror, I find either it's really well received or it's shit upon instantly because it doesn't stick to the tropes. Horror fans, as a horror fan, we're the meat and potatoes of the movie world.
Yep.
I mean, that's the best way I can think of to describe it is we kind of like our horror a certain way, and we don't like it to be fucked with. If you try to do something outside of that, it's often seen as you're breaking rules that shouldn't be broken. Don't do that because this is how it's supposed to go. Not all horror fans are like that. I don't think I'm like that too much, but a lot of my friends that are into horror, that's very much how they are. They don't like change when it comes to horror films.
Yeah, I know, but I still think that if you took that kind of slasher idea and turned it completely on its head, I think it would totally pay off at the box office. Have your dudes be your main crop of people getting picked off, and have not just a woman, but have a smaller statured woman be the killer for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Do not explain it. Just have her be this little psychopath. Crazy, especially if the dudes are big dudes, and then the girl is especially little, and she would come in and just completely slaughter them.
She
tasteless.
She could find creative ways.
Don't even make her sexy killer. Make her faceless killer. But it's a girl, and she would just slaughter all these big dudes until that movie would sell.
I think you're kind of seeing a little bit of I want to say you're kind of seeing a resurgence in the horror genre like we seem to get every 10 or 15 years, where we have a 3 or 4 year period where horror is just on point and there's awesome stuff coming out, and then it kind of fizzles and goes back underground and pops back up again. But I think right now the reason you're seeing a bit of a horror resurgence is, amongst popular culture anyway, is the fact that there are directors that are taking chances and going outside the box. You look at, I haven't seen it yet, but you look at that film Get Out.
But, well, here's another thing to that point. Why is that? Why is it now that they're taking it outside the box? Because there is a direct I'm answering the question I just asked. There's a direct correlation between
this
shitty politics and politicians and when things are, especially the way they are now, that horror always has a resurgence.
Not to get into politics, but you look at what was considered probably the golden age of horror, late 70s, early 80s. Look at what was going on in America at the time anyway. You look at, Reaganomics, that whole thing, going back even farther, the end of the Vietnam War, the whole thing, all that stuff together, that just bred. Because people are anxious, people are nervous, people have, so...
People are angry.
And it all comes out, and this is where horror... I've always correlated horror in metal music kind of the same way. When things are not going so well is when those take off and really explode because people are angry, they're anxious, they're upset, they're nervous. It's a healthy way to get all those emotions out.
That's right. It absolutely works the same way in music. You go back to the Great Depression. As a guitar player, I am a blues fan. When do you think the best blues ever was made?
During the Great Depression, and there's a reason. Yes.
Yes. When things suck, art thrives. And it sucks that we have to wait for things to suck before art thrives, but that's kind of the way that things go.
Yeah, it is. But getting back to the point of going outside the box, I think right now it's kind of cool that you're seeing stuff going outside of the box and being successful.
Yeah,
I think that's very cool because as much as I love my standard 80s slasher flick with a beautiful girl that's kind of airheaded maybe, or the real shy girl that, she would never have the sex or smoke the pot or drink the beer, so she's going to survive while her slutty friends are being promiscuous and getting run through and stuck to a wall.
Well, and along that line too, out of the box thinking, It Follows was interesting because it had a final girl, but she also was not a damsel in distress. She used that curse as a weapon a couple of times. And
that's one of the ones on my list to watch this month too. Is It Follows?
Oh, you haven't seen?
I had not.
Oh shit! I hope it is.
No. I kind of know the general premise that it's sexually transmitted disease type weirdness and. But there's a handful of newer movies I've been avoiding watching strictly because I wanted to save them for October. Hopefully I'll get to all of them, but we'll see because as I do every time I kind of make plans to do a 31 days of horror for October, I tend to go overboard with the amount of films I pick, and then I can't get to them all. So, but pretty much during October, the only things I watch are horror, hockey, and football, and that's about it. So,
well, for Cleveland fan, that's horror, and
horror. Yeah. But hey, I think the Blue Jackets are going to be decent this year, so you might have a team to root for there. So, I'm kind of up in the air about my Bruins. I think they're very young, very good possibility of being awesome. But they're very young, so who the hell knows? It's really going to depend on how fast those guys gel. And I think they're going to end up with 7 or 8 first-year or rookies on the roster this year. So,
wow. Yeah, well, it takes
time. So I've been spoiled as a New England sports fan. Between the Red Sox, the Bruins, and the Patriots, and even the Celtics, even though I have no desire or care about basketball whatsoever.
Yeah. Me either. I root for Cleveland, and the only sport I really care about is, football and hockey.
In the last 15 years, we've had 10 or 12 championships between all the teams, so...
My God, what's it like? We've had one in the last 53 years.
Hey, but
that's the only way that I root for, or that I care about basketball is like, is Cleveland going to win something? Yay! Same with baseball. We're going to win the World Series this year.
But from the entire time, I'm not so sure the Red Sox are going to even make it out of the first round because they've been flailing pretty bad lately. But if you look at New England sports, the only team that won any championships for the longest time was the Celtics. The Red Sox, obviously, they're very storied in their struggles. The Bruins hadn't won anything since the 70s. The Patriots had never won anything. I grew up watching teams that sucked, barely ever won, and then all of a sudden it just happens they all started winning championships. So,
and I grew up watching teams that were on the verge of winning and then left.
Bertie Kosar era Cleveland Browns is a prime example.
Oh my God! It was every year we were picked to win the Super Bowl, and then they just decided to leave and went to Baltimore and then won Super Bowls.
Like the year after they left, wasn't it?
I'm not a historian, but thereabouts.
I get what you're saying, but
I can keep track of movie stuff for the most part, but sports stuff, it fades. Because I'm a Cleveland fan, we lose. Perennial.
And on that note, I think we're going to wrap this up. But before we go, is there any links you want to throw out there where people can check out Movie Freaks?
You can find us at all the usual social media spots. Anywhere that you find your podcasts, look for Movie Freaks. Movie Freaks Pod on Facebook. We do written reviews. We put up just enough movie information of what's going on, what's coming out, to not be annoying. Just give you a little bit. Same with our
I'm
Twitter.
trying to find that happy medium balance on my own Facebook page. Like, I don't know if I should release, because I write reviews for everything because I do a review cast, like once every few weeks or whatever, where I just review movies. And, and usually what I do, I put all my written reviews up at the same time, but I'm like, man, I'm popping up like 8 or 10 reviews at once. I'm wondering if I would be better off to release one, as I get them done, and then just do the audio review of them all, or, I don't know.
I kind of try and keep it to stuff that's interesting, and I kind of do a thing or two a week. We kind of had our... he puts up a review on Tuesday, I put one up on Thursday. And lately we've been so busy, we've been discussing we might have to pause that even, because we don't have time to...
Oh, it's a learning experience. I'm kind of figuring it out as I go, and what's working and what's not, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But, hey man, I will, once again, thank you very much for coming on, and, I think we just broke the record for my longest podcast, which is all right. There's no set time limit.
It's what happens when you invite a movie freak on to talk about movies. You end up bullshitting for way longer than you expect.
Right, man. We'll definitely do it again sooner or later. Maybe sometime I can get both you and Eugene on here at the same time, and we'll go really off the rails with something.
Hey, maybe we'll try and get you on for one of our commentary
that would
episodes.
definitely be a blast, man.
We kind of do a couple of those a year, so I have aspirations to do exactly
awesome,
that.
Man. Well, all right. I would like to thank Eric for being on the show. Make sure you check out the Movie Freaks. You have been listening to Average Joe's Drive-In. I also want to thank my sponsor. Before I forget, I'd like to thank my sponsor, the Maine Cannababes. If you go to their website and you order any of their merch and type in the code word Average Joe's Drive-In, you will win a chance to get a autographed picture of your favorite Maine Cannababe. That's www.mainecannababes.com. Once again, you have been listening to Average Joe's Drive-In. I am your host, TJ Washburn, and I will see you sexy animals on the flip side.